Oh, it's been a bit. Coming back from internal medicine, status post, a couple weeks to recover. We are back in the studio and it feels good. Oh, without further ado, welcome to the Beyond the Scope podcast presented by NDMD Productions and made possible by Augusta Podcasts, now part of Get Up Productions, your one-stop shop for launching your podcast. Let Get Up do all the heavy lifting and give you the tools you need to turn your podcast dreams into a reality. Learn more at augustapodcast.com/NDMD. I am your host, Andy, third-year medical student, and if you are familiar with the NDMD YouTube channel, you'll know that we love sharing stories from residents, students, and attendings of different medical professions while giving you an inside look into their lives, not just as healthcare workers, but as incredible people as well. This podcast continues that mission of sharing the incredible stories and experiences of those incredible people, but this time it's all about the things all those years of medical training doesn't prepare you for. So things that are beyond the scope of our practice, whether it's navigating starting a family as a medical student or physician, or learning how to invest as a student. The goal is to just bring on incredible role models who can guide you through those puzzling questions or even reflect on the lessons that they've learned throughout their careers. With that being said, let's introduce today's guests. And today is a very special day because I get to, in a way, celebrate two incredible soon-to-be alumni of my medical school. Match day was just a few weeks ago, and the only thing between them and an MD at the end of your name is a hooding ceremony. So you two, I'm sure, are much more relaxed now than ever in your life. So I know it's going to be a good time today, and I'm super excited to kind of talk and reflect about the past 4 years. So please join me in welcoming two members of the MCG class of 2022, Christian and Alexandra. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're pumped.
I know. We're very excited.
Oh my gosh. I know you guys talked. I would hate to use the word fans of the channel, but at times, sometimes y'all's reaction warrants it.
Yeah, no, whenever a new video drops, I'm like, ooh, let's see what Andy's got cooking up here, whether it's the 73 questions or just a podcast video. I love seeing it's fun to see you're a medical school from a different perspective, and through the camera, if somebody's really passionate about it, makes it look a lot more fun than your day-to-day may look like. But also, that's what's nice too, is there's some videos where you're just brutally honest of what the experience looks like, which is nice. You don't get your polished perspective of medical school. You have some real videos that kind of speak into that really arduous challenge that comes once in a while. So glad to be here.
And you guys have been so supportive from the very beginning, day one in orientation when I was just a weird guy with the camera. And, I can only hope that I portrayed our medical school very well in a positive but very genuine light. And it's a great school. You guys obviously did very well in the match. So kind of moving along those lines, let's get the formalities out of the way, kind of introduce yourselves, where you went to undergrad, and, a proud shout out of what specialty you're going into and where you matched, if you're comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Alexandra. I went to the University of Georgia for my undergraduate degree, obviously now at the Medical College of Georgia, MCG, and I'm doing internal medicine at Vanderbilt, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I'm Christian Cullen. Also went to UGA, New Alexandra in college. Majored in microbiology, currently at the Medical College of Georgia, and I'll be doing general surgery at Brigham and Women's Hospital.
Ooh, man. You guys absolutely murdered match day. Seriously, I didn't get to be there at the actual ceremony, but I saw the list that was being sent in our group chat. I was just like, jaw on the floor going, oh, that's a top 10 program. That's a top 10 program. That's a top 10 program. That's a top 3 program in a top 3 competitive specialty. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And I was telling you guys before we started recording that I can only hope for our class to do just as well as yours. So you guys have created an excellent example to follow.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you.
And so it's been, how long has it been since match?
It's all been a blur. Almost a month. Yeah.
We matched March 18th.
Right.
So
okay,
about a month.
So how have you guys been doing since match?
Oh my gosh. I feel like it was just this mad dash to match day, and now it's just like, oh, now we're done and we're just waiting to graduate, and it's a very strange limbo feeling.
Definitely.
I would describe it.
I think we're all still kind of floating in the air after match day. We haven't really come back down to reality. I think there's such a crashing crescendo to match day, and afterwards you're still kind of in this daze, like, what do I do now? You're filling out some paperwork once in a while. You stalk on your co-intern class once in a while to see what they're all doing nowadays and who you're going to be friends with. And but for the most part, it really comes down to just kind of savoring the remaining moments you have of medical school, which looked like spring break. Alexandra, myself, and about 25 others all went to the beach and just had 2 beach houses in Destin and just kind of savored our last spring break ever. So at this point, we're hugging trees and kissing the ground because just reflecting on the last 4 years. And I don't know, I'm a sentimental person, so some days are more teary-eyed than others. And it just makes you grateful for the last 4 years. So that's what we've been doing this past few weeks, and hopefully for the next couple weeks too, before graduation.
Man, so how does it really feel to have everything earned? And I use the word earned very truthfully because that's what you guys did. Kind of when everything is said and done, like, how does it feel, really?
It really feels surreal. Like, I tell people the way I feel is excited and nervous because we have worked so hard to get here and gone through so much to get here. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's happening now. Like, because I remember being a first year going to the hooding ceremony and seeing these fourth years and they just looked like doctors. And now I'm that person. I just don't feel like a doctor yet because I just feel small. But and I'm really excited to get to take care of people, but also nervous to take care of people because it's a big deal. So it's just a big mix of emotions for me, I would say, and just very surreal, I think would be like the summarizing word.
Yeah, I think for me, I get the same excitement that I had going into medical school of this is a new chapter. I'm very scared and anxious, but I see what these 4 years amounted to in ways that I couldn't even imagine. So it makes me excited for the future to come of, look what happened in medical school and look of the people I met and the relationships I built and just the experiences that I had. And it makes me more excited to even have that in residency. So a lot of excitement, but definitely some healthy anxiety along the way of what am I getting myself into? I'm about to be giving out orders. Relative, not to in reference to the whole team, not much, but we're going to be making some medical decisions, which is scary. But we've been hopefully well prepared over these 4 years and, just really excited.
Yeah. And I was going to, when you talked about the hooding ceremony, Christian, I don't know if you remember, me and you were at the hooding ceremony last year.
Right.
And I mean, if you scroll back on my channel a little bit, I made like a little TikTok short of it that's still there of kind of just the surreal moment of that. And, you and I were sitting kind of in the corners of the room going like, are we going to be there soon or ever?
Right.
Period. And that moment's here for you.
And you'll blink and you'll be there because truly, I mean, the first hooding we went to in 2019 when we were first years felt like a blink away. And same when I was with you last year, it felt like yesterday. And here we are. So you can rewind back to this video once you're preparing for hooding because it'll be there before you know it, truly.
I hope so. Still got a lot in between me and then. Things like, deciding on a specialty.
Yeah.
You guys like that transition?
Come on.
So how did you guys decide on the specialty that you wanted to go into?
That's a good question. I felt like I always wanted to do internal medicine. I was definitely that person in medical school where I just loved everything. Like I had the good problem of not being able to decide because I loved everything so much. Like, I did the subspecialty like hemonc and I loved it. And then I went and worked with the infectious disease team and I loved it. And so I was like, I just cannot decide. And what was funny was I really liked surgery as well. I really liked EM as well. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life? And I just felt like internal medicine, you kind of got to see all of that. And I'm thinking about subspecializing in critical care. So kind of, I feel like the perfect mix of emergency, surgery, and medicine. Trying to keep my mind open for residency. But I think for me, it was like the deciding factor of do I want to do pediatrics or adult medicine in terms of just general medicine. And I just found in pediatrics, I was more wanting to just play with the kids than take care of them and diagnose them and treat them. And so I was like, okay, maybe I need to be an adult doctor and then just play with kids. So that was kind of my deciding factor.
I love it. So for me, medicine was kind of new on the radar in high school. I befriended a a guy at my high school named Cole, and he had cystic fibrosis. And basically, we were able to see a whole new perspective of medicine through his treatments. And it really made medicine an interest that I had in high school. But when it came to specialty-wise, I didn't really know where to start. No one on both sides of my family came remotely close to medicine, no nurses, PAs, doctors. So it really wasn't until I was working as a cashier in high school and a guy in blue scrubs walked up, and I just asked him, I was like, are you a surgeon? And he went, yeah, kind of questioning look. And I asked him, I said, can I shadow you? And he was like, sure. And I gave him his chicken nuggets in exchange for his business card, and it was a fair trade. And luckily my school system in Coweta County gave us class credit to do shadowing in a certain workforce or industry in exchange for school credit. And I spent every single morning my senior year shadowing in the OR with Dr. McAlpin. And he basically just unveiled general surgery to me as a field. And I was like, this is really cool. You can see patients in the clinic, solve it, and then see them post-op. So that was an interest of mine going into medical school, and just really didn't lose that. It wasn't until surgery clerkships that I rotated through surgical oncology. I just loved that balance that a surgeon had with really difficult conversations of somebody who just got their world rocked with a cancer diagnosis, treating it and then seeing them post-op, a year, 2, 3 years after their surgery, to really, have that continuity of care during a really difficult time. And I loved it. So, right now that the plan is either surgical oncology or pediatric surgery as well. But another plus, just like internal medicine, is you have, 5 years to really feel out different specialties. Mm-hmm. So who knows what it'll be, but those are the top 2 right now.
Yeah. So 2 specialties with just the ceiling isn't even the end. Mm-hmm. And really excited to see where you guys end up. See, the next chapter is coming soon.
Yeah.
So what are you most excited for in this kind of next chapter of your life?
Ooh. I feel like you kind of hit on it when you were saying it was similar to entering into medical school, because I feel like I'm a completely different person now than I was when I started medical school. And I just feel like I've gained so much wisdom and also just life perspective and gratitude for what I have. And I think it's just going to improve and get bigger in all of those aspects in residency. And just, I'm excited to grow more into who I'm supposed to be, I think. Along with, I'm just pumped to be that person where people are like, how do you know all that stuff? Because I look at people now, like doctors, I'm like, how do you have all of that in your brain? Like, how is that possible? So I hope one day that I'm that person for somebody else.
She already is. For our whole class, we're like, all right, classic. I mean, she's already an encyclopedia for all of this. Yeah, she already reached it. So your question was, what are we most excited for in residency? I'd say the same thing. I mean, just you don't really. It's just the unknown. The unknown is scary, but it's also kind of exciting because we didn't expect what would happen in medical school, and it was amazing. And residency, we get to learn a trade that we're really passionate about, and we're joined by other people in your cohort that are equally enthused about that one field, and you just sharpen one another. You're with people who love to teach that, so you're open up to a whole cohort of people who are equally driven in the field of your interest, and you're exposed to different research opportunities. It's just an exciting time of life where you're finally in the track that you want to be. There's no what ifs or question marks of whether your future is going to be here or not. You're on that track, and if you stay the course, you'll be that career at the end of the day. And but being molded by people who are equally passionate about it, which is really exciting and quite rare to find in any other profession, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Mentorship is just like a humongous part of medicine. I mean, from the very beginning, the people that first introduced me to the field of medicine, the people that made me decide to apply to an accelerated program, commit myself to that, like as a 17-year-old, were medical students. Mm-hmm. Because I worked with them in a clinical research lab, and they showed me what it was like to be them. And like, it's the same way that your surgeon, said, let me show you what it's like to be me.
Yeah.
And that just, it's a recurring theme in every field, really. But I think its most dramatic effects can be seen in medicine. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So we're getting nice and reflective here, which is good.
My favorite.
Because, look,
let me cry.
Oh man,
He's very sentient. He gets very sentimental.
Make sure the camera goes
Zoom
over
in
there.
on his face.
Like, just get a macro shot of the tears. So today, I think it's a great time to really reflect on these past 4 years for you two. And, if you haven't already reflected a million times, and, share some of the stories and lessons that led you to where you are today. I know, Christian, because you were the class 2022 president, you were one of the constant encouragers for me and my class since orientation day. But let's take you guys both back to your own first day of medical school and orientation day. What did you think you were going to specialize in then?
Ooh.
Good question.
I know. I felt like I was pretty set on internal medicine, but I was of the mindset I feel like I am now. We're trying to keep my mind open. Because I had shadowed plastic surgery before. I had shadowed anesthesiology before and radiology and all these things, and I liked them all. But I was like, I'm sure it's so much different to actually do it. So I was like, I'll give myself until actual rotations to decide, okay, is this really what I want to do? And internal was my first rotation third year. And it was funny because everyone else was like, I hate this. This is the worst, blah, blah. And I was like, I love this. This is the best thing ever. So I knew that I wanted to do internal because I was one of the only people I knew who loved it so much. Like I stayed late at the hospital because I was like, I just want to do more stuff. So I was pretty set, I think, from the beginning.
Awesome. I was kind of torn between general surgery because that was my first exposure really to a medical field, but also pediatrics. My friend Cole and his battle with CF was really something special that I really felt drawn towards the field of pediatrics. And that was kind of a 50-50. And then as I got more into third year, I was like general surgery and specifically either pediatric surgery or surgical oncology. Sounds like a more fitting field for me.
Okay. Now, do you remember, you kind of hinted on it before too. So do you remember the emotions of that first acceptance into medical school? And how would you compare and contrast those feelings to that of opening up that match day letter?
Oh my gosh.
I was writing these questions. I was like, I cannot wait.
I know. This is bringing up like all the emotions again. I actually remember vividly when I got into medical school because I had a relatively rough application cycle of medical school. I applied to, I think it was like 17 programs and got denied from 16. And like, I was just like, I'm not going to go to medical school. Like, this is horrible. And thankfully, the Medical College of Georgia offered me an interview. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to mess this up. This is my only interview. Like, I'm going to do it. And I was sitting in cell biology at UG. I remember so specifically because it was my first class of the day. And I was just like checking my emails and I saw one from the Medical College of Georgia and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with this? Because I was like, do I want to open it now? Do I want to open it later? So I like left the class. I like got up and walked out. And it took me probably 5 minutes to actually open the email because I didn't know if it was going to be a denial or an acceptance. And I finally worked up the courage to open it and I just burst into tears. I was so happy. They were like, congratulations. We're so excited, blah, blah, blah. And so I called my mom. She didn't answer the phone. And so then I called my dad. And my dad burst into tears, and he was so excited. My mom ended up calling back later, and she got the news. But it was just such a happy day. But I just felt like in that moment, I was like, I could either go into medicine or not. Like, it was a very, like, 50-50, where I felt like match day, I was like, okay, I'm going somewhere. Like, I'm going to be a doctor, and that's amazing. And I actually couples matched, and my boyfriend and I, our goal was to go to the same place. And by matching, we knew we were going to go to the same place. So we were happy about that, but we just didn't know where. And the night before match, his name's Nick, he was so awesome. He was like, let's just go through a whole list of the places we ranked and say good things about them. So that no matter where we go, we're going to be really happy. And it ended up working out really, really well because on match day, I was excited no matter what. I'm like, I'm just excited to be a doctor. And then we were both really blessed to get into our number one choice, which was Vanderbilt. But oh my gosh, it took all my willpower not to open that envelope the minute I got it. But we had to hold on to it until noon. And I was like, don't open it. Like, but it was just such a good feeling.
I mean, truly, those are core memories, you know, when you find out you're going to medical school, residency as well. I mean, you work so hard across, an 8-year span to get to this point. And, in college, I found out I hadn't heard back from other schools, and I was at my sister's house. My sister and I went to college together, and I was on her couch. My mom was actually visiting, just randomly. Like, she wasn't visiting because it was that one Friday we'd find out. I think she was there just to say hey. And she was in the kitchen, and I got a random email from MCG, and I was like, here we go. And I opened it up, and I guess I kind of just went catatonic, and I was like, whoa. And my mom didn't really see that I'd opened it, and I slowly kind of shut it, and I slid it over, and I was just like, hey, Mom? And she was like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, I'm going to medical school. And she went, and I don't think she heard it. She's like, what'd you say? And I was like, I'm going to med school. And she was like, what? We hugged and cried, and it was just like a sweet moment. And comparing that to match day was the exact same thing. I hugged, my mom was right there, my dad was there too, and a lot of excitement. And also, like Alexandra, I was trying to be really thrilled anywhere on my list, because you don't know where you're going to be on your list. There's a certain percentage that get their top 4, but there's always a percentage where you can be anywhere on your list too. So I try to be thrilled regardless. And I hadn't cried, hadn't teared up at all. I was more excited, but the moment I opened it up, I guess just the Hoover Dam, whatever was holding back, right when I embraced my mom, just and I was like, I'm an ugly crier, but just a sweet moment, because I think you know all those years of work just come crashing forward the moment you see that next milestone marker of where you're going to be for the next couple years. So really sweet.
Oh man,
yeah,
it's coming. Your day will be.
You will be there
so
soon.
I know. This is so much fun to hear. Seriously, I mean, it's like peeking into that crystal ball of seeing, like, hopefully, what can come in the future. It's a very celebratory moment. So, and you mentioned core memories. So the next question has that exact phrasing. What were some of the core memories you guys built during your pre-clerkship years? Any fun stories?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
There's a ton. Right off the bat, just because Alexandra is here, is just those late night studies for quizzes. Everybody had their own little study group. Alexandra and I had a study group, maybe 4 or 5, and it slowly dwindled to just Alexandra and I. Because we lived in the weeds. Like when we were reviewing for stuff, like there'd be like your little high yield stuff. But for whatever reason, like Alexandra and I just loved talking about just the minutia stuff that may be tested, but just took a long time to review. And luckily, Alexandra loved it as much as I did. So it was just a little party of 2, but we just grind for these quizzes on like Thursday night, Wednesday night, and go from lecture 1 of the week all the way to the end. And those late nights were just some of the best memories we shared, because we'd be in House G, just, making random mnemonics, and, it was hilarious. But, every single night before we'd leave, we'd walk through the parking deck, and she'd go to her car, and I'd just give her a hug, and I'd be like, we got this tomorrow. Let's do it. And we'd peel off, and it was just like every week for 2 years we would do that. And it was just some of the best moments during times that shouldn't really be fun, but it was fun. And, I owe a lot of my degree to Alexandra, truly. And it's just, she's my best friend as it is, but to share a lot of that work with her was really memorable. So.
Oh, yeah. I would agree. I still remember some of those random mnemonics that have no meaning now, but it's just so fun. And I would agree. Those were probably some of my highlights. I think we had House Olympics our first year. That was so much fun, because put a bunch of medical students in something relatively competitive, and we're going to go all out. And over things that don't matter, like carrying an egg on a spoon in your mouth. I was so competitive. I was like, I am winning this. That was really fun. And then I remember too, anatomy lab was strangely very fun. Obviously just the weight of the body donors and just how special that is. But also I felt like in the lab, it was time stood still, probably because there were no windows, but also because I felt like you could go in there, and anyone who was in there, even if you didn't know them, you could bond so quickly helping each other study anatomy. And I was an early morning person, and so I would go into the lab at 6 a.m. before class, and it was me and a group of 4 or 5 others, and we would just pimp each other on the structures and go from person to person, just studying it on every single person, because it looks so different. And I think that was really beautiful too, just to know wow, this one structure looks so different in all these people, and they had no idea that this was like there. Like, I don't know, it's just really cool. So
Yeah, definitely anatomy lab as well. I'd also add we had an MCG's Got Talent first year.
Yes.
And that was, I mean, that's also one of my best memories of just medical school in general. And all of our classmates unveiled these crazy talents that you didn't know existed. I mean, one of our classmates was a baton twirler and like fire twirler during halftime shows at UGA football games. We had dancers, our medical school security guard, him and his band played, and Mr. Carter. And I was in a band as well. I'm still in a band with Liana Mosley, Barrett Sanders, and Lucas Ribbons. And we played our set. We also had a bassist who's on faculty at MCG play with us, Dr. McCall. And it was just, I mean, I was like, who knew medical school could be this fun? You have these amazing, talented classmates, but you also get to just form these core memories with my own friends, and to the point where our band still plays, and we're playing at our graduation dinner, and just comes full circle, and made medical school truly one of the best 4 years of my entire life, and I stand by that. And these are memories that I'll hold on and that we'll continue to build throughout residency and beyond. So I can go on. Truly, just we really were blessed with an amazing class and great memories along the way.
That's awesome. And I mean, I was really curious to hear what you guys' pre-clerkship memories are, because I think that's the most recent thing that I can call just like in memory, because I've like moved on from that stage. And I definitely didn't have the experience of like teaching each other in the anatomy lab. It was more like, hey, did you find this too? Or are you just as lost?
Right.
I think my experience was a lot more mutual confusion.
Right.
Yeah.
That's okay too.
And anything.
I'll add to that. She knows what I'm about to say. I'm not the anatomical wizard.
You can't be saying that and going into surgery. Come on.
I am now.
Yes.
But
pre-clerkship now. But
in anatomy lab, there's one day where we had radiology on the screens, and they labeled what after the fact I realized was Hostra. Instead, I just saw something kind of dark and hazy within the colon. So I literally on my tag sheet I wrote feces. I literally thought they tagged like poop on an anatomy practical, and once we went through it, I got it wrong. It was Hostra. They were like, "What'd you put?" And I was like, "I gotta go to the bathroom. I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you." So yeah, we've come a long way since anatomy lab.
yes, we've grown a lot for sure.
There's hope for everybody out there.
There's always hope.
Oh man. Well, kind of moving on to the next little stage of medical school. What were some of the core memories you had during your clerkship years? Your clerkship years are stereotypically way more intense and grueling. I have here in my show notes to ask you if kind of like any tough moments or hard lessons you learned clinically, but I think like that sort of has a negative connotation, and there will most likely be stories of that. But overall, just what were some of the things that stood out from those 2 years of being in the hospital and being a student doctor?
Oh, that's a very good question. And I think it's a good question in that I think my clerkship years were what kind of made me into the person I am now. And I'm sure you're starting to see that as you go through
Very much
rotations.
so.
You are humbled and built up and all the emotions. But I would say some of the most memorable, just in general, I think I was really struck by how pre-clerkship we learned about all these diseases and all these treatments. It's like, oh yeah, like multiple myeloma, do this, or broken leg, do this. But when you actually see it in practice, it's like, wow, this is actually serious. And I felt like my first ever patient that had multiple myeloma, I did not realize most people die. And I was so struck by that. And I was like, why didn't we learn that? Like the humanistic part, I think, of medicine is what you learn. And so that was really striking to me. What was also really striking to me is just the camaraderie in medicine, both from, colleagues in terms of residents and doctors, but also from the nursing staff, the PTs, the PAs, the nutritionists. Like, it's just a big family. And when it works together, it's a beautiful thing. And I just remember so many memories where, late night, you're on call or an overnight shift and the residents are just goofing around or, teaching you something super important, or a nurse just is the kindest person ever to you, and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. They're like, it's okay, I'll help you out with this. And that was a really beautiful thing. And I remember one instance in particular, I forget what I was doing. We were on a call with some part of the team, and someone snapped at me about something. And I remember my upper level resident was like, no one talks to my baby bear like that. Like, he just like was such a protective role model for me. And I just felt like I was like this small being in the hospital, and to have someone like that had my back, like, hey, this is a student. She is trying her best. Like, standing up for me was a really beautiful thing. And I'm excited to be that for students in the future, like once I'm a resident.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think, I mean, you can't expect what you're going to experience in your clinical years. I mean, I went in thinking it was going to be just a grueling, just gauntlet of just getting information thrown at you, kind of ask questions on the spot, and not much really time for reflection and really engaging with patients. But quickly, the first few weeks, I realized that as a medical student, you're in a unique position to spend the most time with these patients, but and be as updated as the rest of the medical team. Surely not as knowledgeable as the rest of the medical team, but you're up to date with everything that's going on. But you have all the time in the world because all these residents and attendings are doing their job. They're doing all their tasks they have to do. So your job is to see these patients, and it makes way for a really powerful moment for you and the patient as well. Like, we see endless patients a day, but you need to realize that these moments in the hospital are going to be moments of life that these patients and their families will never forget. And every little interaction you have throughout the day, they're going to remember for the rest of their life. So it's really important not to take that for granted, and to see that as a beautiful moment of really changing somebody's life, or making this diagnosis something they can really manage and fight through. So, that looked like holding the hand with a cancer patient who was about to be wheeled into a Whipple procedure for pancreatic cancer. Holding their hand with them in PACU, in the OR, holding their hand as they're getting put under from anesthesia, seeing them afterwards, and then seeing them in the clinic. I mean, praying with a patient, talking with their family, talking about their expectations. I mean, you really have a powerful moment as a medical student to engage with these patients that residents and attendings rarely do. So that was one aspect of the clinical years that I just did not anticipate would be a frequent part of my day. And you have to seek it out. And it takes residents to remind you. There's a lot of residents in the hospital who are incredible people who'll pull you aside. They'll give you a letter on what it means to be a doctor. They'll remind you, hey, keep in mind these patients always need you there. And so, but it's just, once you sculpt your perspective and expectations each day of how am I going to impact this patient's life and make this a core memory for them, like, it really makes each day just full of so much purpose. So you get back into your car and you're like, wow, like, I encountered humanity on a level like never before today. And hopefully that'll leave them with a memory that they'll always remember during this really, really tough time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I'm at a position now where I can definitely relate to some of those experiences and stories. They're not just like things to look forward to. Coming off of internal medicine, it's rough.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Mad respect for what you guys do, because you see very sick people, and then people counting on you. And I still remember, like, the first time a patient looked at me and said, like, to me, you're my doctor. And I just, like, it's a surreal feeling that at that moment, and when I mean at that moment, I say now too, that you just don't feel worthy of, especially in your early rotations. And, like, those are stories that I carry with me the rest of my life. There's stories deep down of patients that I've seen that, like, it's gonna weigh on me for the rest of my medical career. I'm sure you guys experience those as well. But I mean, if I've learned anything in my past, like, 2 blocks, is that, like, your stories are being built by them and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's just, like you said, it's a very uniquely human experience that, it's an intimacy that nobody really ever gets to experience.
Yeah, yeah, and as a result, I would encourage you and anybody who's in clerkships that if whenever you feel like yourself not being helpful or just kind of being just swamped by notes, or you don't have a way to help in that medical room, in that office, I encourage you, like the moment you feel that, leave and just go into one of your patients' rooms. Like make that the place where you just kind of recharge, because it'll remind you why you're in medicine. It'll mean the world to the patient, and just sitting there and being with them and finding a chair to sit down will mean a world to them. But it'll also kind of reaffirm your position in the medical team as somebody who really cares about the patient, and it'll remind you the whole purpose you went to medical school, because it's going to be really hard to remember that one purpose when you're being bogged down with orders, when you're repleting creatinine, when you're repleting phosphate, not creatinine. Creatinine.
Dude, don't replete creatinine.
But you're repleting, potassium. It's hard to anchor yourself in your purpose in medicine when you're doing all these notes and stuff. But you will surely be reminded that when you're sitting with that patient. So always do that. Just when you're feeling yourself down, just go to the nearest patient room and just sit down, because it means the world to the patient and you. So,
yeah. And I know I've mentioned it many times on my channel, and I still experience it very often to this day, and I don't anticipate it going anywhere. But medical training just simply at times sucks. It's unforgiving, it's brutal, like you said. It doesn't care how you feel, and yet you're still expected to show up for your patients, your colleagues, and yourself. So, what were some of the toughest moments throughout medical school for you guys, and how were you able to get through them?
Oh boy, I definitely think studying for step 1 and 2 were very difficult. I remember, like, more specifically step 1, because we were of the time when it was graded. And we probably had, 5 or 6 weeks dedicated time. And I was just, oh my gosh, so burned out and like, why am I doing this? Like, this just is like, because you're not interacting with the patients yet. And so it's just like you're studying all day long. And what I just had to remember, like you were saying, the reason I got into medicine. And the reason I got into medicine was to bring humanistic and compassionate care back to medicine. And because I felt like before I went to medical school, the hospital just felt so logical and cold and isolating. And I didn't want it to be like that. And obviously I don't want people to have to go to the hospital, but if they are there, I want to make it as pleasant as possible. And to be that person who's like, good morning, like, how are you feeling? Big smile on my face every day. And because I'm always of the mindset, as difficult as it is for me to get up at 5 a.m. and be at the hospital, at least I get to go home, and like see my loved ones and do what I want to do. But being stuck in a hospital bed all day and being woken up at all hours of the night, like that is struggle. And I remember a patient telling me, if you ever want to see depression, look at a patient stuck in a hospital bed. And it's true. And so I kind of had that mindset, but just reminding myself and obviously taking time for me. I like to go on long walks, and I like to paint, and I like to read. And so I've always told people medicine will take what you give it and more. And so if you give it 24 hours of your day, it'll take it very easily. So you have got to set the boundaries. Like, okay, I'm not going to study more than 8 hours today, which like seems like crazy. Why are you studying 8 hours? But it'll go by like that. And to set aside the time, okay, I'm going to take a lunch break and throw a football around in the backyard. And then I'm going to go to dinner and grab an ice cream and then go back to studying, and just like set out that time for yourself. And then in the hospital, I would say kind of what you were saying. I was very much the same, where I would just go and sit with a patient. Because what I've learned in medicine is sometimes the biggest impact you can make does not require a medical degree. The biggest impact I think I've ever made was small things. My biggest memories, I think, were in the ICU. I did my critical care rotation during the Delta surge of COVID, and so it was just horrific. We were losing 6 to 7 people a week. And just small things, like we would wash their hair and braid it out of their way. And like, that's huge. And then if they were waking up from sedation and from being intubated, just being there and holding their hand and reminding them, this is where you are, this is who I am, this is your name, like this is what's happening. And I don't need to be a doctor to do that, but I have the honor of being able to be in that situation because I'm a doctor. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think just focusing on that kind of impact I could make, rather than like, oh my gosh, why can't I remember which beta blocker I'm supposed to give? Like, that will come with time. You will figure that out. But what you can't learn and what you just have to be is that empathetic, caring person who can set aside how busy you are to sit down with someone and really love them well.
I can't say it. I mean, better than that. I mean, I'd replay that wherever you are in the video.
Just
go back a few more minutes and watch that again.
Clip that. It will most likely be like a little snippet on my channel because I mean, my jaw is on the floor, really.
Yeah. Truly. I mean, she really hit every single bullet you need to keep in mind when you're going throughout medicine. When it comes to it, taking what you give it, reminding your position in the team, a lot of the impact you can have don't require a medical degree. She said it perfectly. I mean, I can't. Yeah. Perfect. Truly.
I'm blushing. Stop.
Yeah. No.
I'm
It's
speechless.
important. You need to remind yourself of those things because it's really easy to get bogged down by the river of responsibilities. But anchoring yourself to those truths are critical. Write them down. Put them somewhere, and find people that can carry that out well and live it out well to remind yourself, which is what Alexandra has been to myself and a lot of friends. Is you find people who really live that out well, and if you surround yourself with those people in medical school, that'll rub off on you, and you'll live by those tenets as well. It's important to surround yourself by people who you want to reflect, and Alexandra does that really well for all of us. Truly.
Thank you.
So.
Sweet.
Oh man, it's good to be back in these seats and having these conversations. It really is.
I love conversations like this. It's just
gosh, I hope that everybody listening or watching is really absorbing this because. Like just as much as I am. This is true wisdom from people that have gone through it. And I mean, I have my next question kind of go into the depths of study strategies and stuff. But if you take away anything from this, it's got to be the things that don't require a medical degree. I love that so much.
Exactly.
But we'll move right along. We'll let the viewers and listeners soak on that. And of course, like we're medical students, we can talk study strategy all day long. And I know I'm going to get some comments about it because if I interview med students at the end of their path, somebody's going to be like, how did you study?
Right.
Can you give me tips for it? So to kind of just appease those who are wondering, just choose your top 3 resources that you would recommend for medical students to succeed.
I like that question. Like just short, sweet.
Yeah.
Definitely UWorld, first and foremost. And that's something I wish I could go back, like for example, for the MCAT and do like more practice questions. Because I think the best way to prep yourself for a test is to take test questions and take tests. And not only, like, I think some of the best advice I ever got was treat UWorld like a textbook. It's not about the score you're making, because there are some days where I swear I get like a 50 on it. I was like, I'm going to fail. Like, this is horrible. But the way you're supposed to use it is, answer the question, read why the right answer was right, and read why the wrong answers were wrong. Because if they just change a word, it can totally change what the answer is. And that way, when you're in the hospital actually seeing it happen, it's like, okay, well, I know we shouldn't do this treatment plan because of this reason that I'm remembering, but we should do this, this, or this, and, I'll learn those nuances of which one to pick in residency, but just understanding why you do certain things and why you don't is a huge thing. I would say another one I used was Anki. No offense to Anki, but I hate Anki so much personally, but it works so well. It works so well.
I agree. The way I describe Anki to anybody is that it's like when your mom forces you to eat your vegetables, where it's like you hate it,
exactly right,
but you do it because it's good for you.
It's so good for you.
I can't deny results either.
That's right. And that's the thing. It worked so well, but it really was, I dreaded it every day so much, but that worked really well. Trying to think of like a third that I feel like those are my main 2. Maybe like Divine Intervention podcasts or Goyon podcasts are really helpful.
Yeah.
Sketchy. Oh my gosh. Could not have lived without Sketchy.
Yeah. I'd agree. UWorld for sure. Anki for sure. And, when it comes to any study resources or any study advice, anybody listening, you need to know, like, it's all subjective. Like, you study the best. Only you know the best study strategy for you. And, you can't compare yourself to everybody else, what they're studying, what they're using. So if Anki's not your thing, that's fine. If UWorld's not your thing, maybe Amboss is, because you'd be doing some kind of questions.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, your study strategy should be catered to how you learn best. So, but for me, it was UWorld, Anki, and making Anki cards as you do UWorld, kind of split screen, make them. What was really helpful for me for Anki was there was a website that you can put in the link somewhere, but I don't know how this stuff works, but I'll send you the link. But it's a link that basically shows how you can organize your Anki in a way that's in 3 little folders. So you have current week, current module, and then review. You can name whatever you want, but your current week, basically you make cards for the questions from that week, whatever you're learning in lecture, and you're kind of mulling over that week, and then after that week ends, you put it in your month or module. And then you're making more that next week, but you're reviewing what you did in that module. And then you're slowly just going upstream. And after that month, you put them in your review deck. So you have 3 decks that are easily manageable. You're reviewing all of it. And by the time you're in the review deck, you're zooming through those cards because you've seen it in the current week, current month / module. But it's a lot more, it's a lot easier to track what cards you've done, because there's some people where they'll upload all the decks into Anki and you see all these numbers of things to do, and it's just a cacophony and you don't know which deck to do first. But when you have in 3 manageable decks, you've seen everything, and once you see those zeros, it hits different.
It does.
It does.
So yeah, but the link on how to organize it that way, we can put in the video somewhere or wherever. But it's a really helpful link and it explains it really well.
I'll make sure to do that. And I mean, the one regret I have through my pre-clerkship years was not using Anki efficiently and then burning out quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, in my foundations module, I was doing 1,400 cards a day.
Right.
And by the end of it, I just said, if I continue this, I'm not making it through med school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I think I overcompensated and did too little. So I can definitely tell the modules that I didn't use it a lot, because that's where I have the most knowledge gaps.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta use it efficiently, and if you do it that way, kind of bit by bit, you're slowly building your castle of knowledge, brick by brick. That first week, then module / month, then the review deck, and bit by bit, you're slowly going to have all the information, but you will have seen everything you need to see, and it doesn't swamp you 1,300 cards a day. It's more like 100 or 200.
Yep.
So I would definitely look at that, but again, it's all subjective, but it worked really well for me and some of my friends and classmates.
Yeah, we'll move on, because I'm not typically the biggest fan of talking study strategy, just because you can get so deep in the weeds.
For sure.
But all right, now I know typically people's answers do not change, or people answer this question that they wouldn't change a thing. But that won't stop me from asking it, because it leads to a lot of introspection, like we haven't done enough today.
Yep.
So is there anything you wish you did differently over the past 4 years?
I think mine would be, I think everyone in medical school, the error they make is either they invest too much in studying or too much in hanging out, making friends, and need to find that balance of I need to study more or I need to chill more. I was definitely the studying way too much person. And I wish that I had the knowledge I do now to know I don't need to be studying 10 hours a day. But when you first get into medical school, you're just so anxious and you want to do well and you want to make it through this and not have to drop out or something crazy. And so I felt like I missed out on a lot of cool opportunities my first pre-clerkship years, I guess, because I was so much okay, I have to know every little detail. I have to know everything on the slide, and it's just not true. And I know that now. And I think I wish I could talk to myself back then and be hey, it's okay to not spend an hour on this slide set and go and hang out with somebody for that hour. I think is what I would change.
I'd say the same thing. I'd say more so for personal self-care. I feel like the relationships and the work-life balance of medical school, I was really happy with. So I wouldn't change that part. I think I had a healthy balance of school and socializing and friends and stuff, but it all came at a price. And I think the price was my own emotional and physical health that came at the price of sleep. For me, I was I can hang out with a friend and study, but sleep 6 hours or 5 hours tonight. And I was it's a price to pay. Let's do it. And I would just perpetually have bags under my eyes, or I would like, lose weight, or just, be emotionally fried, because I just, I find most rest with my friends and peers in social settings. So I'd study and I'd go to my friend's house, and I loved that. But I just forgot that at the end of the day, it's me loving myself. It's me sleeping. It's me eating right. It's me meditating, praying, and loving myself well. And I didn't really realize that until like towards the beginning or middle of third year, internal medicine. I was at the end of internal medicine. I had studied, I'd seen my friends, but there's one day where I broke down. I cried. I was literally on the floor. And I was just like, why do I feel so exhausted emotionally and physically? And people that I cared about the most were like, you need to sleep, you don't sleep at all. You don't have a lot of time for yourself. You're always, out with your friends at their houses, or, at socializing events. And, but, the me time was very much sacrificed at that. So I learned a lot, this past year and a half, 2 years, to, prioritize sleep, prioritize your me time, reflect, journal. And that's something that I want to carry on into residency as well. And I wish I'd known that earlier on, because I think it took a toll.
Yeah. I mean, somewhat similar experience in internal medicine. Look what internal medicine does to people.
I know. But it's such a good thing.
It is a great thing.
I say that in jest, okay? That's a joke. I think every student has those points. But it's a necessary kind of revelation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then I have one question to ask before we wrap up.
Okay.
Because I would be lying if I said I didn't ask myself this every day. Looking back now, after you've climbed the mountain, is med school worth it?
Yes. No hesitation. Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah, easy. You didn't have to finish the question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all worth it. I stand by the fact that these are the best 4 years of my life so far. Hands down. It's the hardest I've ever worked, but I've made the closest relationships in my life. I've made memories that I'll never forget. And ultimately, I'll be entering in a profession that I've dreamt about, and serving people well, and just living the dream. It's a grind. And somebody told us early on that med school is really, really challenging, but it's up to you if it sucks or not. Mm-hmm. So, a challenging experience and an enjoyable experience aren't mutually exclusive. It's your attitude, it's who you surround yourself with, it's your perspective. And a lot of that sounds, very cliche and very pie in the sky, but for real, it's who you surround yourself with, it's your attitude. But yeah, totally worth it, 100%.
Yeah, because what other profession does a complete stranger trust you with their life? That's huge. That is huge. And to be in a position to meet someone at their worst and love them so well in that, and be able to hold their hand and say, hey, we're going to make it through this one way or the other, and I'm going to be right here with you. What? That's awesome. How do we get to do that? And, my mom always said, the things really worth doing aren't easy, because otherwise everyone would do it. And I very much think that of medicine. It's I think if it were easy, everyone would be a doctor. It's awesome. How would you not love being a doctor? Mm-hmm. But it's so hard. It is so hard. And we'd be lying if we said, oh, no, it wasn't hard.
Right.
Truly, I will never forget the first week of medical school. I think we finished my undergrad degree in a week. Boom, done. I was I don't know anything else after this. So,
yeah.
And I mean, but oh my gosh, no, I would do it 100 times over, I think. And I'm also just, I think, a little crazy. I love medicine, a lot. There's nothing else I want to do, period. And some people aren't that way, I think. Some people are oh, no, I mean, I like medicine, but maybe I would have done something different. No, heck, I would have done it again.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's just medical schools are good at picking people who really want to do this stuff. If you're passionate about it, these hard days and hard nights are going to be really tough, but they'll be worth it in the end, because that's what you want to do, But it's not a walk in the park. This isn't. We're not, sugarcoating all this.
We're not paid actors.
It's
either.
tough. It's tough, but man, it is worth it in the end. Truly.
Very.
Oh man, aren't we all a little crazy to be here though?
Yes. Oh, I mean, I think you have to be a little bit.
Yeah.
I think so.
Just a little, not too crazy. Just
Just
a little bit. Just a sprinkle of
just a healthy bit of
that's
crazy.
Right. That's right.
Now, that leads me to the last question for the fellow sprinkle of crazy people out there watching or listening right now. What is the one advice that you would give to that prospective medical student?
I would say don't lose your compassion because it's so easy. You've seen this on rotations. I think you'll meet people who become very cynical and very jaded. And cynicism has a place in terms of coping, but I would say don't lose your compassion. No matter how hard it gets, your patient deserves your utmost and your whole heart. And as hard as that can be, I think, I have to imagine if I were the one in the hospital bed, what would I need? And it's your whole heart. Give me your whole heart. It's hard, but I think don't lose that heart for people. And it's good to learn coping and you don't want to break down on the floor every patient encounter, right? But don't stop caring about people. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how long you're in this field, never stop caring about people.
Incredible advice. Would definitely hone in on that as well as if you're pre-med, if you're in high school, if you're in medical school, that's crucial. I'd say one of the first things that came to my mind when you asked that was who you surround yourself with. The closest 5 people you surround yourself with are going to shape the course of your life, your future, your vision of life, your mantra, your whole perspective, everything really is whittled down to your closest 5 people. So do a survey of the closest 5 people, and that is going to be the product of what your future looks like. And I'd say that is crucial in medical school. You want to surround yourself with somebody, with people who are going to keep you accountable to study, but largely and more importantly, are going to keep your focus and perspective right. Somebody who's going to champion that patient in that bed, champion every opportunity that comes their way, fulfill you, pour into you, celebrate you. Because those 5 people are going to determine your perspective of medicine, where you go, your career goals, everything. And if you surround yourself with people in medical school that are really pessimistic about that like to complain about every single situation that you're in, that will slowly mold your whole perspective into that same route. And I'm not saying that complaining is bad, but sometimes people it's a bad habit to get in, and I mean I'm guilty of that as well. But surrounding yourself with people who have that mission, who have that drive, who are on that trajectory that you want to be on as well, hitch up to that cart. Because that's going to determine where you go as a high school or as a college student, as a medical student and beyond. So I tacked that on as well.
Very well said. And just an absolute fitting conclusion to this episode. It's such a joy, really, because I've experienced a lot of kind of those ups and downs, and coming off of internal medicine, a lot of very intense ups and downs, a lot of what you have described as transforming moments. And it's a very humbling thing to relate to that now. But just something so powerful for me to just listen to, and I hope everybody else listening, is to just be reminded of the end goal and kind of the joy of that journey, as cliche as that is. It's true. It's not easy, but it's worth it in the end, because there are people that you don't know that you impacted, and you never will. But the fact that you showed up that day made all the difference.
Exactly.
So with that, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Y'all, wave to the cameras.
Thanks, guys. No, this was so fun. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
Cut.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Beyond the Scope podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's guests, and to make sure that you don't miss a single episode, make sure that you follow Beyond the Scope on all streaming platforms, as well as if you want to see the full video cut, subscribe to my YouTube channel, NDMD. As always, subscribe, like, follow, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next one.